Having known that God is your deliverer, which is quite interesting and amazing, you mustn't stop there. You must be conscious of the fact that He also wants you to be an extension of His deliverance to the world by making you a deliverer. What we're about to treat now is a place of your responsibility in the deliverance or in the deliverer that God is. And the reason we have to start from that foundational teaching is because you can't even be a deliverer to people when you yourself have not been delivered. It is good to know that you're going to heaven, but you cannot afford to stop there. Your next point of rejoicing is how many people are going to heaven with me. God's system to make you a deliverer to the world. Number one, your assignment. Esther chapter 2, verse 5 to 8. Our case study is Esther. Verse 8 now, it says, "For it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, that when many maidens were gathered together in Shushan, the palace, to the custody of Hegai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Hegai, keeper of the women." Now you must understand that in God's system to make sure more people are delivered, from the power of darkness and brought into the kingdom of His Son or into the kingdom of light, He would always move through men. This is Esther from nowhere, no father, no mother any longer. But now, because of God's plan to get the people delivered, to get His own people delivered, He started moving through men. He started moving through Esther. He started moving through Mordecai. He started moving through the palace in order to get one of his agents, one of his ambassadors into the palace to get His people delivered. One of the things I wanted to realize from here is that in all you do, you must be conscious of the fact that you are on an assignment. Learn to study the situations and circumstances around you. Never take your life casually. Never think that where you are is by chance. No, you cannot afford to make life happen to you, but rather you must be very intentional to happen to life. Number two is influence, in moving people from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light. Influence is very important. Okay, when there is no influence, the voice of God via the children of God will not be heard. So one of the systems of God is to see that He uses influence to propagate more persons from the kingdom of darkness to His kingdom. Okay, and no, don't forget, the same way God is using influence is the same way the devil is using influence. I quoted chapter 9 verse 3 to 4, chapter 10 verse 3. You would see so many other things, even some other things that the Bible said about Mordecai. See influence. Non-Jews became Jews. They realized that it was dangerous. If you were not part of God's own people, you are gone. One of the things that you must realize is that influence is not just for self-enjoyment. No, God will not give a man influence for that, for such a reason. Many want influence for ego's sake, not for God's sake. So my question, why do you want what you want? Do you want God to use you, or you want to be the one to use God? Number 3 is prayers. Esther chapter 4 from verse 13 to 16. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, saying, "Think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews." Esther said in verse 16, it says, "Go, gather together all the Jews that were present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night nor day. I also and my maiden will fast likewise, and will I go into the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish." One of the things that this consecration did to Esther was to produce boldness in Esther. How come someone, the same person that was scared of being killed, suddenly was ready to face her fears? What suddenly happened? And this is one of the reasons why we pray and fast. even as believers. Prayer with fasting can change a man's countenance for the will of God. One of the things that this consecration can do to you is that it can turn a timid being to a fearless one.